So, Amie,
Zachary.
I've been on these internets for a long time at this point, and I'm always amazed by kind of how people talk about the things that they are for. And I found something that I think you might be interested in. Can I play you a little bit of tape?
Bring it on.
This was published by published maybe originally. I don't know if it originated there, but on the White House's Instagram.
Are you tired of government promises falling flat? Do you go through an outrageous amount of stress just trying to get by? Then bump it up with the One Big Beautiful Bill and get that relief fast and easy. The One Big Beautiful Bill is the incredible bill that gives you peace of mind and puts money in your pocket every time. It's both big and beautiful. With no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security, and more. Just look at the difference. Amazing! The One Big Beautiful Bill will benefit you everywhere, every day.
So if you're listening to this, just as an audio product, what you don't see is that this is an advertisement. They've taken an old footage from the Bump It ads.
Bump It, yes.
Which, Amie, you're familiar with the Bump It. How would you describe what a Bump It is?
Something my parents' age would wear.
It's a truth universally acknowledged that a single woman in possession of hair is want of Bump It. Right? I think that's a truth universally recognized. The Bump It is a little plastic wedge that you kind of hide in the nest of your hair in order to achieve said bump. It creates these like kind of lobe like dome, almost like salt dome-esque fixtures, architectures within the hair. And it's being used to talk about this very big and very beautiful bill that congressional Republicans passed with Trump's signature. And I think it's really interesting because like what better transparent that something that like looks really voluminous and interesting from afar, but as you get closer to it, it looks really fucking alien, doesn't it? It looks really, maybe it falls apart a little bit because it's being used to talk about no tax on tips, how great this no tax on tips policy is. Amie, have you been following no tax on tips a little bit?
Yeah, it was something that on its face seems like a good thing for tipped workers, not having to pay taxes or being able to deduct that on your tax bill. But the union sort of pushed back in a couple ways. One, a lot of tipped workers are exempt and thus don't really have they have different sort of tax considerations. The other thing is it doesn't go far enough. I think there's some Democrats that are trying to put more rules on top of it to make it actually workable. And the final thing is you actually are still paying payroll taxes. So you actually still have to do that. You're just not paying income tax on tips. And the fourth thing, it expires at the end of Trump's term.
Yeah, let's start with what it does, right? So for the first $25,000 of tippable income that you report to your manager, let's stick a pin in that. The first $25,000 of tippable income, this is non-taxed, which is exciting, I think, for folks. There are a lot of service workers who make what's called the tipped wage, which is, I think it's $2.13 per hour in the United States, right?
Low. Yeah.
So instead of you receiving the minimum wage, right, this standard that we've decided you have to, we decided back in 2009 that if you were working a job, you should at least be making $7.25. Service worker, we have allowed service workers to work beneath that with the thought that we can unload the wage burden off of employers and onto consumers, right?
Yes,
Folks coming to eat, folks coming, to get their nails done at the salon.
Yeah.
And so these workers employers are allowed to scrape by with paying them even less, with the notion they're going to make more.
As long as they make more.
And for that first $25,000, right, which is a significant amount of money, for that first $25,000, that isn't taxed. I think there were some concerns early on that this was going to, suddenly surgeons, after they get done putting in my lip filler, that they would, they'd turn over the iPad and say, "Oh, are you going to tip for your, this procedure that you just
I knew
got?"
you used lip filler.
Yeah, you know me. Gotta get them lips.
That stash isn't gonna bump itself.
That's exactly right. I tried bump its in this mustache initially. It didn't work out. But so they set a limit. So there's a $150,000 limit. So if you make in excess of $150,000, all tips are taxed, right? You are unable to claim that. And this is on top of the standard deduction, which already reduces the tax liability for something like 30% of tipped workers. And like you say, it's one of my primary issues with this is it's not truly untaxed, right? You still have to pay Social Security, you still have to pay Medicare, payroll, these kind of normal payroll taxes. This also doesn't necessarily impact state taxes, right? So while this takes away kind of federal taxable liability on that income, it doesn't tell the full picture, right? And the way I kind of got started, I started looking into this was one of Iowa's great character studies. You'll know U.S. Representative Mariannette Miller Meeks had this excellent post on Twitter talking about how she was celebrating no tax on tips by going to grab a sandwich at the Sundown Bar and Grill over in Iowa County.
It's called the Sundown.
I actually have been to this place. They do have they do make excellent food.
Okay.
But I was interested though. If you zoom in, you'll see that it says no tax on tips. She wrote that with her pen on top.
I see. Yeah.
And
she gave a 21. Wait, no, that's the total. That's not her tip. So she's giving.
I ran the math on this. It's an $18.19 tab. She put $21 and I think it looks like a quarter on the till.
Oh yeah, I see the quarter. So $3.
She's bragging about how she's got, hey, you're welcome. No tax on tips.
Yeah.
Keep the change. Keep the change, Doc. A hilarious thing to post on these internets. And it's because, like with the bump it, when you drill into the specifics, right?
Yeah.
What may have looked voluminous and interesting on the exterior is just someone under tipping their waiter.
Oh yeah. I mean, and this is a big problem in tipped industries, right? Is just making it up. That's why the rule is that your employer has to make up the difference if you don't make it up in tips. And as we're sort of squeezing everybody from all sides, as inflation is cascading and things costing more, tips are necessarily going to be coming down because people just don't have the disposable income anymore. And honestly, visits to restaurants are going to go down. Visits to bars are going to go down. These sort of tipped occupations, getting your nails done, getting your hair done, that sort of thing is disposable income that is going to sort of be lessened by this economy right now. So it's you're already squeezing people, and then you're putting it on the people that are squeezed to make up the difference, and they're not going to.
But it looks like House Republicans like Mariannette Miller Meeks are interested in what could help out service workers, right? And I think that's great. I really think that they make up part of our economy, an important part of our economy, certainly a high touch part of our economy. And so let's talk about what could be done. You could raise the minimum wage from $7.25, which hasn't been adjusted since 2009, right?
And it's a poverty wage.
It's a poverty wage now. Maybe I don't know. I wasn't working in 2009, so I don't. I was in high school, so I don't know what it was like then.
I was serving probably in 2009 a little bit. Yeah.
Were you making that $2.13, that tipped wage? We could decide that tipped service workers are guaranteed, even in the low season, they get their minimum wage, right?
Yeah.
Maybe that's one way you could help out. You could also not cut food assistance benefits, right? You could not lead tens of thousands of Iowans to be uninsured through the very same piece of legislation that this no tax on tips piece came from, right? There are material ways we could. The average household is unable to handle a $200 expense, right? There are ways you could help with that, right? Helping folks have access to health insurance, helping folks have access to housing assistance, right? These are all ways that we could be helping the same group of folks, but
the bump it is showing.
The bump it is showing. Your tip is also showing.
Yeah, damn. Did she get jazzed for that in the comments? Did she get derided for that?
Oh, I don't know. I'm just I'm just a punk. You know what I mean? I never saw a tip on a post that I wasn't going to be like, all right, okay, what are they actually tipping? Are they a good tipper? Are they not a good tipper?
Yep.
Welcome to Cornhole Champions, Iowa Starting Line's weekly podcast where we throw bags at the state's biggest stories. I'm Zachary Oren Smith. Happy Wednesday, everybody, and I'm sitting here with Amie Rivers. Hello, Amie.
Zachary, how you doing today?
I'm good. I'm excited to talk about this story with you. In the Des Moines Register, there was a really excellent piece that I wanted to point folks to. Our first story, a veteran Iowa teacher is pushing back against Iowa DOGE Task Force's proposal for performance-based pay for teachers. Skylar Snakenberg has been teaching in Southeast Iowa for 15 years and wrote in the Des Moines Register about why treating education like a business is a terrible idea. We talked about this last week when one of the proposals, maybe for my money, kind of the wildest one was them wanting the Iowa DOGE wanting to sunset IPERS, the kind of public employee retirement benefit, one of the kind of central benefits for public employees in the state of Iowa. They wanted to sunset it for new workers to bring it sort of more in line with private sector retirement benefits, despite the private sector paying much better than the public sector. But this week we're taking a look at a different one. So right now, if a teacher's pay is not tied to the performance of their classroom, right? If they have, if test scores are up, test scores are down, the teacher, that doesn't factor into how a teacher is compensated for the work that they're doing in the classroom. And I think that there's like a sense, I understand why folks would hear that and say, oh, well, that's probably, probably a good idea, right, to begin thinking about because what if you have a low performing teacher who's calling it in, what are we doing to encourage them to do their best work in the classroom? But that doesn't look at the reality of these situations, right? First, it's just at the top, we should note that, the greatest indicator for a student's success has nothing to do with the performance of the teacher, but has everything to do with the income of that district. Right. Skylar's editorial, he wrote, students aren't products that can be recalled if they don't meet standards, right? So if you have, a public school teacher is put in charge of the classroom that they're put in charge. They don't pick and choose which, unlike private schools, they don't get to pick and choose what students they get to serve, right? They serve everyone because everyone, we decided a long time ago that everyone should have at least a high school education, right? Yeah. If we begin penalizing teachers based on, their job, which is to educate everyone that walks in that door, you're going to penalize them for taking on the kind of hardest, most challenging students, right? Who maybe most need their effort, maybe most need their time.
Yeah, it's already adding on to the if this happens, right? Because obviously these are proposals from Iowa DOGE. But if this happens, it would add to an already strained system that we have with school vouchers. They're financially decimating public schools, right? So you have less resources at your disposal, which means if you've got a couple kids that have individual education plans or something and need a para and your school district doesn't have that para, you just kind of got to deal with it. Right. You're right. The teachers have the students that they have. They can't do anything about it. They can just teach them to the best of their ability, and putting a one-size-fits-all strategy on them is only going to lead to bad outcomes for students.
So I live in Iowa City. My area is covered by the Iowa City School District, and a lot of my friends are teachers in that school district. And I am unfortunately a contributor to a lot of GoFundMe's for classroom supplies, right? Why? Because they need basic materials in order to make sure their classes can continue, so that they don't have to personally shoulder where the school district, where state funding ultimately cuts these classrooms off from the materials that they need. When we talk about making schools more like businesses, right? Which is, I think probably a sensible policy, right? On paper, the reality is that these districts, I don't see the local hardware store posting a GoFundMe for, supplies, right? I don't see Walmart doing that, right? Why? They're financed completely differently, right? And when we try to shoehorn the logic of one industry to another, you end up with some bad outcomes. Skylar writes, I refuse to look at my students as dollar signs or to compete with my colleagues to have the best, quote, raw material to produce the highest results. That's just not how teachers work.
And most businesses fail, right? Most businesses don't last more than 10 years. We want our schools to last. That's the point of setting them up as a public good, right? We want our public goods like hospitals to last. We want our public goods like schools to last. When we start privatizing these things is when we start losing them. If
we don't put value in kind of what into these systems as they are, right? I mean, this is you can expect, right, that the best and the brightest will go somewhere else, right? And with that comes like worsening outcomes for the students that need these services, right? You saw in the AEA debacle last year, right? How so many how many students with disabilities, right, that like just don't have options within private schools, right? How these are their options, right? Public schools are their options. And so it's like these aren't separate issues, right? Like by choosing not to support the common weal, you are hurting parents whose students have disabilities, right? It's I don't know. Surely there's a better outcome, but like certainly treating it like it's a production line isn't it.
Do you have any sort of sense from a covering the legislature standpoint of whether these things are going to come up? I already know like some of those DOGE suggestions, like the IPERS thing, Republicans have said, no, we're probably not going to do that. Have you heard anything about this one?
I haven't heard anything about this one. I wrote a little bit about the kind of, what you're asking is like, because this is a uniparty state, right, and like Republicans control both chambers of the legislature and the governor's office. We did talk to Republicans about changes to IPERS. They have said resoundingly that they are uninterested in this, right? That this is just not something that the caucus can do, despite this governor-appointed board's interest in it. With merit-based pay, right? Tying teacher pay to student outcomes. I haven't read or heard anything from folks, but maybe it would be worth looking into in future weeks.
So this could be the more dangerous proposal, the more possible.
I mean, what's worse here, right? It's I think that it's hard for me to say. Both proposals have significant drawbacks for the people that they impact. So
yeah, we're going to start losing more teachers, and we're already facing staff shortages. I mean, I read those articles all the time about how school districts are just going to online classrooms now.
And with that, let's take a break.
On that depressing note.
On that depressing note.